Everybody in the whole wide world really just needs to chill.
I'm going to do this because I was trying to keep it to very generic questions, but you told me on the way here,
Dude,
ask whatever.
Man. Yeah.
So upon leaving the hour and then ultimately George Stroumboulopoulos tonight, you went to Hockey Canada.
Hockey Night Canada, that's right.
So I just kind of wanted to know what you thought about the whole Don Cherry situation and also what it was like working with him. But if you don't want to comment on that, I totally understand.
I am surprised this was the thing that brought the end of Don Cherry. That's what I've been saying. Don Cherry has said far more controversial things on the show. I think there's two things that have happened. Again, I know a lot of the people involved, but Don is Don, and Don represents an enormous part of this country. There are a lot of people that agree with Don, and for a long time, those people were in charge. Those people aren't in charge anymore, and you can see it. Look at the way the Conservative Party's ad campaigns are generally, and how Andrew Scheer ran the last campaign. Mm-hmm. He was running on a different version of Canada, and that Canada's not there anymore. But they're trying to bring it back.
Yeah, there's some people who want to revert to that.
Peter MacKay just put out his big post about how pride parades are important, and whether or not he's the leader, he'll be there at the next one. That's a big shift because he recognizes as much as there's a part of Canada that is that OG, old school Canada, not OG, because OG is about like changing things. Yeah. But the old school Canada, Peter MacKay and whoever else, he sees there needs to be a different path. So what I'm saying is times are different. And here's something else that's fundamentally different. The person that's in charge of Rogers now, who laid the hammer down to Don, as I knew him, I'm not close with him by any means. I didn't really work with him. He wasn't there when I was there. Like, he wasn't in charge. There's a guy called Bart. Bart, at his core, is a decent person. And I'm sure when Don Cherry said that thing on the show, I don't know, I wasn't there. It's not that he didn't like the controversy. I think he just would have thought, that's just not who we are as a people. Don has always been really nice to me. Don and I do not see eye to eye on most things about this country, and we certainly do not see eye to eye on most things about hockey. And Don and I would scrap it out at Hockey Night Canada, always respectfully. I respect my elders, right, in some respects. And I've known Don since I was 21 years old. So I've known Don a long time. Yeah. Long before I was on television, I knew Don Cherry.
How did you meet him then?
I met him when I was working behind the scenes as a technical operator at a radio station, and he would come in on Saturdays with Brian Williams to record that Grapevine show, whatever it's called.
Grapevine, yeah.
Yeah, and there was the radio version. And Don and Rose used to come in. I knew them, so I've known him since I was a kid, a young person, right? And it does me no good to sit here, but I've said, like, I've disagreed with Don, and we've talked about it on there. Like, but who cares? We see things differently. I was surprised that this was the thing, though. I was like, okay, yes, what he said, I absolutely disagree with. Mm-hmm. So do a lot of people, but this was the one.
But he had said, I heard on the radio lots of things about women in hockey and many other controversial things that were equally, or at least similarly.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. All he did was represent an enormous part of the hockey culture. And hockey people want to go out there and go, that's not who we are. Bullshit.
Yeah, they're just getting called out now. Yeah.
Bullshit. It's been an enormous part of your culture. An enormous part of your culture. But what happens is not the only part of the culture.
Of course.
Tons of progressive views and tons of progressive movements in hockey. But
it was undeniably a part of it, yeah.
Huge part of it. Mm-hmm. A huge part of it. But not just Don. Like, I'm talking about the people who ran the networks. I'm talking about the producers. Like, that's sports culture. That's hockey culture. Do you think you're really getting journalism in sports? Like, really? You're getting a couple of people who are standouts. But anybody who works for a big company, generally, like, I saw it with my own eyes, man. You're basically, they would always say, we're partners with the leagues. What does that mean?
Sounds sketchy.
It just means that you're doing their bidding.
Yeah.
And they'll, again, but here's the thing, man. That's what most of the audience wants. Most of the audience wants, just make it straightforward and let me get mad at you. That's what the audience wants. They want to get mad at you for your position on, look, as a Montreal Canadiens fan, team sucks and has sucked for a long time.
What, the Leafs?
The Habs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a Habs fan.
Oh, no, I thought you were just saying the Leafs suck.
No, but the Leafs have sucked absolutely for a long time. The Senators are a terrible hockey team.
Yeah.
And have been for a long time. each one of our teams has a flash.
Yeah, like when we went to the finals against Calgary or
Anaheim.
Like
I remember I was here watching a game long before I worked at Hockey Night, and so in our part of the country, our teams stink, and our whole experience with hockey is to be disappointed. That's our whole experience.
Yeah.
Once you get past 11, right, where oh my God, it's my favorite player. Once you get past that, it's just disappointment. Now I love that because it's the gig. I love hockey. I'm down for the disappointment. This is what it's like. But that just translates on television. That translates on everything, right? So it's not. We don't really have the kind of hockey culture that I think people think we do. Mm-hmm. And I say that as a guy who's an enormous fan, but as a guy who worked and hosted Hockey Night in Canada. Not that many people have hosted Hockey Night. I was in there. I saw the culture. So the Don Cherry thing, it's like, again, I don't know the conversations between him and Barton or whomever he spoke to, but I just do know this, is that Don represented himself. Mm-hmm.
He was doing what he had always basically
done.
Yeah.
I think he thinks that people misunderstood what he meant, but like regardless of that, he wasn't going to apologize. Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's where he messed up, but maybe it was time for him to go just because he's getting old.
I don't know.
You know how
I don't mind old guys on TV though. Old ladies on TV, I'm down. Bring it on. Old men, old women, bring them on. I think we should have old people on. I mean, what's old, right?
No.
Time is a construct, right? Time is a construct. We don't even know.
Yeah.
That to me, it's no. I mean,
I think because there were certain people that were arguing that what he had said might have been because he was getting up there and getting more senile moments where he's just I would never.
Shit, I don't know that. I don't know if Don's pretty sharp, okay. But I will say this. I know a lot of young people who wear MAGA hats. And really? I know a lot, of course. I
guess you go to the States a lot more than
that. Yeah. And I know a lot of people in their 70s and 80s who are mortified by racism. I think it's more about a mindset that exists. And Canada is a relatively young country, and hockey has been controlled by the same four people in the last since the advent of sports television. The same four people have essentially controlled TSN, Sportsnet, and Hockey Night Canada.
Just four?
Pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty much. So they have dictated what hockey culture is going to be, mm-hmm. and I'm not mad at it. I don't care because I don't expect TV or sports coverage to reflect my values. But this is growing up listening to punk rock. I have never expected television to reflect my values, and I don't get mad when it doesn't reflect my values. I didn't grow up believing in institutions. I don't believe in any of it. I don't believe in the government. I believe that it exists, but I don't believe that it's on our side. I never did. I don't believe that networks are on our side.
Well, we were talking about this on the drive over, just trusting Google and any large corporation.
They're not on our side. And we have to work for them sometimes and get your bags, get whatever you need to get out of it.
Yeah.
But I'm not outraged when people say things on television because what did you expect?
Yeah.
What do you expect?
Especially from him. That's what I was kind of saying.
It
doesn't make what he said right, but...
Yeah. But, I mean, like I said, the thing about television and radio is, and not the internet, and this is the one thing that the internet has working in its favor, but ultimately against it, is that there is no institutional expectation. So when the market decides you're out of step, the market decides you're out of step. That's the same market that had you in step for a long time, or you were in vogue. Mm-hmm. And once they decide you're not, you're not. It's not promised to you forever, and that's the game.
Yeah, if you're slippery situation, you never know.
Yeah. But no one's entitled to this forever.
That's true.
Right? I think you have to, what are your core values and what do you want to represent? Don, when we used to, I remember once Don, something happened, he came into the control room, or he came into the studio when I was on, and he was mad. And I could see, it's like, oh shit, something's going to go on. So I walked up to him, but everybody, and I will say this, a lot of people at Hockey Night in Canada didn't want to cross paths with Don.
Intimidated, obviously.
Of course, because they were intimidated by him, right? And
his persona was very bombastic.
Yeah. And I saw it firsthand. Even though people, when I took that job, I did a lot of watching, right? And you could just read the room a little bit. But when Don would come up, because I've known Don so long, I'd go right up to him and I'd be like, whoa, hold on. He's like, listen, I've been on the air for 30 years. And I'd be like, I've been on the air for 25. And then as soon as I would say that, he'd laugh, right? And then I'd be like, what's the issue? What are we dealing with here? And we would figure it out. And so, again, I disagree with a lot of what he says. I disagree with almost all of his positions when he talks politics. But I could communicate with Don.
And that's what's missing from the world, essentially, when people have different viewpoints and they can't at least not agree to disagree, but have a respectful conversation from a disagreeing vantage point.
Yeah, here's the challenge. I agree with you, but I agree with you sort of. Here's the challenge: is that when you have two white guys, like I'm a relatively white guy, and that I'm an ethnic, and Don's white. So Don's white and I'm ethnic. And, you heard this a lot when Joe Biden in the campaign talked about how he could work with both sides. But really what that meant was when he compromises, do you think Joe Biden ever compromised any of his rights? Of course not. He compromised the rights of young African Americans. Mm-hmm. He compromised the rights of women. So it's easy for Don and I to find common ground. We didn't find common ground in terms of what we believed in, but we knew how to communicate with each other. Because Don is actually is a good guy. Don's a good guy. At least he has been. Me knowing him. But it's important. I recognize that I would never in a million years have just been like, oh, that's okay. I would go into the coach's corner office and say, yo, Don, come on. Mm-hmm. And I would see other people just kind of be like, And I'm just like, wow. But
don't poke the bear, yeah.
But it comes because I'm from CBC. I came from CBC where we had fucking standards. And I know people will go, oh, CBC, like, stop it. I've been on the air for 14 years at CBC. I can remember once being asked to reshoot something because of what I said on the air.
Wow.
Once.
What was that, if I can ask?
I said there was no Santa Claus.
Of all the things, I can understand, actually.
Producer came in and said, look.
We're going to get so many fucking emails.
Yeah, you can do it, but please not. Because let the parents tell the kids there's no Santa Claus. We don't, and I just kind of looked at them.
Both kids and parents would have hated you.
Yeah, and I looked at them and I went, yeah, that's a really good point. I'm not going to be the one that ruins your dream. Myths are important. Mythology is interesting. So I redid that. Like I would say stuff that I know the bosses don't like. I would say stuff that the prime minister didn't like, who was liberal, who was conservative, because that's the only two this country ever gives a shot to. Yeah. Right? And, we
very true.
Canadians are very smug, and
I voted NDP this year, man.
Oh, there you go. Canadians are very smug, man. They're always generally like, well, America's only a two-party system. I'm like, really? What do we have here?
Yeah.
Don't fool ourselves. But I learned at CBC that you have a responsibility to do the work, journalism, tell the truth, entertain the audience. But entertain isn't the trump card. It's not about entertainment by itself. Anybody can entertain by doing really crazy shit. There's a responsibility. There's a responsibility to talk to the audience, to connect with them. That was always very important to me. So when I got to hockey, I was like, whoa, this is a completely different culture. I knew it was going to be different. I didn't know it was going to be different in the ways it was. I had my suspicions. I don't have any, I'm not going to tell you the whole story because that's for another day.
Sure.
But this is who the country is in a lot of ways.
And you had to learn how to talk to those people, I guess.
I chose not to.
No.
Well, I know. I actually know. What's funny is actually my boss, who ended up, we didn't get along at the end. But the guy who was in charge said to me that when I was the host, I remember going out for lunch with him, and he said the ratings have gone up with women and people under 30 when I was the host.
Hey.
But the problem is
a little ego boost. Come on.
But the problem is they were listening to a lot of a certain generation who didn't like my skinny pants. And would hurl homophobic slurs at me on the street. Oh, yeah, man.
That's
yeah. I know, like, the real hockey culture because I met them. And it's like, oh, that's a whole other. It never bothered me because I've slayed much bigger dragons than that in my life. That's the easy thing. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to. I want to be liked, but I don't need to be liked. And I think that's an important distinction. And I had a great time at the hockey thing, and it taught me a lot. And it actually set me up to be where I am now, which is where I really like where I am in my career. And this is where I run my own company, and I have deals with places bigger than hockey, if you can imagine, in terms of like the companies. But I needed to go through that experience to learn it. I had it in an employee's mentality, right, my whole career, because I'd worked for networks.
Yeah.
Once that ended, I started my own company with my friends. I was like, oh, I have to learn this shit now. And it was really nice to be 30 years into your career. And
freed from those shackles, kind of.
Freed, but also realizing, oh my God, there's so much I don't know. I got to learn this.
It's great, though.
Yeah, I love it.
Keeps you from getting bored, at least, yeah.
Never get bored. Never get bored in this business. Never.